Chapter 23. The school exploded again. Eventide had fallen into something of a routine since Bibi got sick from all of the red coming out of CHS. He would get up in the morning next to Bibi's bed and help him to the best of his abilities. This usually consisted of replacing the plan, cleaning out any existing puke stains, and even putting Bibi through the shower when some was really encrusted onto his carapace. Interestingly, Bibi actually really liked the shower, claiming that it made his wings feel nice. Regardless, once that was done, Eventide would bring Buddha in to show some affection, and this was usually enough to lift Bibi's spirits enough to get him out of the basement and into the house proper. But despite all of those efforts, it wasn't enough to cure Bibi. His demeanor had remained sluggish and queasy for the last day or two, and he still had issues with puking up that paste. When he managed to get the strength, he would park himself by the window to just stare at CHS, giving off regular observations of all the red coming off of the school. It was coming in waves, he noticed, growing intense sometimes and then fading away into being almost non-existent. It was usually at its best and thinnest at night, when everybody had left the school. Of course, this odd pattern made Eventide even more concerned about what was going on. His need for answers drove him to call Fluttershy several more times, but every time he did, there was no answer, only the answering machine. Her silence was aggravating, and Eventide's growing anxiety was not at all lost on Bibi. Worse still was that Eventide had to go to work that day, leaving Bibi alone with only Buddha for company. Luckily, the dog had been able to keep Bibi from completely losing it. The two had been able to remain more or less calm and secured on the chair while they waited for Eventide to come home. And when he did, the first thing he did was give Buddha a treat and Bibi a big hug. Now, the sun had set outside, and Bibi was, just like before, peering through the window at the school. His eyes were focused on some beams of light shooting into the sky from the stadium behind the building, and his wings twitched on his back every now and then. Eventide was by his side, resting on his knees and observing the light show with curiosity. If he listened carefully, he could just make out the sound of music and singing, along with a cheering crowd. I guess the musical showcase that Fluttershy mentioned is going on tonight, he muttered to himself in thought. Bibi winced and shuddered in revulsion.
All of the red is there,
he mumbled before stifling a heave. Eventide's hand found his back in a heartbeat, soothing and calming him. After a few moments, Bibi took in a deep breath and gave a chitter of thanks before returning his attention to the lights. Eventide sighed and gave him a few comforting pats. You'll be okay, Bee, he assured his son before observing the lights some more. I kinda wish I knew what was going on over there, though.
Yeah,
Bibi nodded before scooting closer to Eventide.
Has Aunt Fluttershy called you back?
Eventide hesitated, his heart rate increasing somewhat. He eventually shook his head. No. I've been trying to call her, but it always goes right to voicemail. He grumbled in mild frustration.
Is she okay?
Bibi asked, his enormous eyes looking up and boring into Eventide. I hope so, he replied in a mutter, sagging slightly with concern. I really hope so. They didn't say anything else, instead choosing to watch the lights and listen to the distant bassy thumps of the music. Whoever was playing clearly had a passion for it, and they were pretty good to boot. Suddenly, from the direction of the singing, there was a flash of blinding red light. Eventide and Bibi both leaned back, their eyes going wide when they saw the light forming into a dome that expanded in all directions. What the? Eventide shouted in alarm, his hand tightening on Bibi's back and preparing to shelter him in a heartbeat if need be. Thankfully, the dome came up short, stopping in the middle of the street and fading away.
What was that? What's happening over there?
Bibi asked fearfully, looking up at Eventide. I dunno, he replied shakily, finally pulling Bibi against his chest and holding on tight. "But whatever it is, if it's a threat, I'll protect you."
Promise?
"With my life." Any further discourse was cut short when the two of them saw something they had not been expecting to see that day. Monsters. 3 monsters made of purple, blue, and golden light, looking like a strange and terrible hybrid between fish and dragon, rose into the air behind the school. They let out an ear-piercing shriek, making the windows rattle, then swooped around to circle a nearby hilltop. Bibi squirmed at the sight of them.
They're making the red. So much red.
He choked out in terror, shrinking back against his father's chest. In response, Eventide pulled him closer, using both of his arms to hold him and shield him. "It's okay, B. They're pretty far away. We're safe here," he said in what he hoped was a reassuring voice.
Then why are you scared?
Bibi questioned, his eyes dilating slightly as his vision refocused. Eventide winced. "Because I have no idea what's going on." The monsters made another swoop, emitting more ear-piercing shrieks at the hill, rings of crimson light going with their voices. If they looked really hard, they thought they could just make out people standing there on the hill, weathering the monster's onslaught. Once the creatures let up to catch their breath, the people sent back strange lights of their own. Red, purple, fuchsia, and others, all of which hindered the monsters, driving them back and making them look angrier. Then, to both of their great shock, something new appeared. A pillar of prismatic light shot into the sky from the hilltop, casting the entire city in a gentle and soothing light. At the top of the pillar, 2 massive feathery wings emerged, followed shortly by the body of a majestic horse with a horn on its head. It was comprised entirely of a divine blue light, and Bibi's eyes widened at the sight of it.
All the red. It's going away!
Eventide looked down at Bibi for a moment in surprise, then turned his attention back to the giant horse. With a loud and echoing boom, it launched a beam of yet more rainbow-colored light from its horn and down towards the obscured stadium of the school. There was a blinding flash, and then another dome of light, this time pale white in color. Eventide and Bibi both squinted and closed their eyes as the blinding flash passed over them with the sound of wind rushing in their ears. And after that, all was silent. The music had cut off, and nothing could be heard. Gradually, Eventide and Bibi opened their eyes and looked on at the school, completely and utterly baffled. The horse was gone, the monsters were gone, the stadium lights were gone. It was as if all of the oddities of the last 5 minutes had suddenly decided that they were just done for the day and gone somewhere else. Finally, though, Bibi did what kids always do. He asked an adult.
What just happened?
Eventide blinked, looked at Bibi, the school, the hill where the rainbows had come from, then Bibi again. He then gave a weak, bemused chuckle. I think CHS just exploded again.
Again?
It's happened before, Eventide muttered before setting Bibi back down on the floor and heading for his phone, which was currently sitting on the kitchen counter. There were a few seconds of quiet before Bibi looked through the window again. This time, he let out a gasp, his wings snapping out.
Wait, Dada! The red! It's all gone!
He exclaimed, causing Eventide to stop. Yeah, I remember you mentioning that.
Uh-huh. It all went away with the big horse. There's a lot of pink, bright blue, yellow, and green instead.
Bibi lifted into the air, his wings buzzing in excitement.
Whoa! Whoa! There's so much!
Eventide furrowed his brow and thought. Those colors are good, right?
Yeah, they're the best ones, especially pink.
Bibi gleefully stated before latching onto the window like a moth drawn to a light, his wings fluttering and his tongue lolling out of his mouth. Eventide rolled his eyes and sauntered over. Okay, Bee, get down and stay out of sight, okay? I'm gonna call Fluttershy and figure out what the heck just happened. Hopefully she'll answer her phone this time. Fluttershy breathed a small sigh of relief as she slid into an enormous group hug with everyone, and Sunset Shimmer stood comfortably right at the core. The sirens had been rendered powerless and defeated. Their spell of hatred and vitriol was broken, and they had thus run away. The threat was over, and Fluttershy and her friends had Sunset Shimmer to thank for it. When all hope had seemed lost, when they were buckling under the pressure of the siren song, Sunset had stepped up and helped her friends push the enemy back. And now it was peaceful. The crowd of students was steadily dispersing, leaving the 7 people and 1 dog to cuddle and bask in their victory. All of a sudden, the peaceful atmosphere was shattered when Fluttershy's phone began to ring in her pocket, quite loudly too. Everyone else turned to give her a wide range of looks, from bemused to exasperated.
Seriously?
Rainbow deadpanned, extracting herself from the hug to cross her arms over her chest.
You couldn't put it on vibrate.
Fluttershy backed away with an embarrassed blush on her face.
Sorry. Oh, don't worry about it.
Verity dismissed with a small smile.
If it is a friend or family member, go ahead and answer the phone. I'm sure they'll be wanting to know what the, explosions were all about.
Fluttershy, still repeatedly mumbling an apology, took the device out to check who the caller was. She winced when she saw the name. With a hint of anxiety, she took a deep breath and pushed the answer button before holding the phone up to her ear.
Hello?
Oh, thank goodness. You picked up this time. Are you okay? Canterlot High School just exploded again. Eventide's voice came from the other end of the line, audibly relieved to hear her voice. She giggled at his description.
Exploded might be a bit of an exaggeration.
Not the point, Eventide deadpanned. Are you okay?
Yes, I'm okay. A little tired, but okay.
Good. So what just happened? Fluttershy glanced back at the rest of her friends who were patiently waiting on her. She grimaced and turned back to her phone.
It's kind of a long story, and my friends are waiting on me. Do you mind if I tell you about it tomorrow after school?
I mean, sure. Before Fluttershy could say anything else, she heard the distant and unmistakable voice of Bibi in the background.
Is that it, Fluttershy?
Eventide chuckled. Yes, Bee, it is. Do you want to talk to her for a second? Bee let out what could only be described as a loud chitter of approval.
Yes, please. Yes.
All right. Hey, Fluttershy, Bibi wants to talk to you. Fluttershy giggled again.
I heard. Put him on.
After a moment of silence, Bibi's voice came through loud and clear. Although, given its naturally two-toned nature, it sounded a little odd coming through a telephone line.
Hi, I'm Fluttershy. Hello.
Fluttershy replied, careful not to use his name.
Are you behaving yourself? Yeah, I am. I don't feel sick anymore either. Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad.
Bibi gasped in excitement, and his voice became distant.
Wow, it really is her. Can I get a phone so I can talk to her when she's not here?
Eventide let out a loud and hearty laugh, his voice muffled by the distance from the mic. Maybe when you're a little older. We gotta hang up though, so say bye. Bibi complied.
Bye, Aunt Fluttershy. See you soon. Of course. I'll see you two tomorrow. Bye.
Fluttershy replied sweetly before lowering the phone and ending the call. She let out a sigh and turned to face the others with an apologetic grin.
I'm so sorry about that. A friend saw the lights of the, battle. He wanted to know what happened.
There were several moments where they were quiet, before Twilight Sparkle suddenly spoke up.
So, Pinky, before I go back to Equestria, do you mind if I sleep at your house again?
She asked hesitantly. Pinky gave an excited gasp, tightening her grip on the group as a whole.
Slumber party night too! Who's interested?
She asked in an excited squeal. Nobody had any objections.